Welcome to a financial revolution, where big banks no longer make the decisions. The old structure is failing. Has been for years now. Their relevance and presence on nearly every main street is vanishing. This is a world where digital finance is available to everyone, and the power is in the palm of their hands. What started as a simple idea of giving the people control is now the future of finance. But since ideas are nothing without action, we're asking, what companies will shape the world of 2025? This is Show Us the Money. We're a team of dedicated researchers highlighting the companies we believe will play a defining role in the world of 2025 and hold the potential to deliver strong investment returns. It's not financial advice. We just bring you our research. So what are we looking at today? We're gonna explore Block, formerly known as Square, a global technology company whose primary focus is financial tech. They're fundamentally changing commerce and leading a revolution in banking. And after we dig into the business, we'll ask the question, what could an investment in Block now be worth in 2025? The company's revolution in finance comes through its various business segments, which they refer to as ecosystems. So let's take a look at these segments. The Square ecosystem. Now, this is for business owners. The Cash App ecosystem. This is for individuals. And Afterpay. Let's begin with the financial revolution for small businesses through Square, a segment of Block's business. Right off the bat, we should clarify something confusing. This whole company was actually called Square for over a decade, and this name has become famously associated with financial technology. But as the business has expanded, it's incorporated more than just fintech. As such, the company has rebranded as Block in 2021, and the name Square now refers to one particular segment, which we're going to explain now. So what was the problem? Everyone had been using big banks and credit card providers forever. What was the big deal? Well, the answer was in who was being left out of that deal. Small businesses and individuals haven't been so lucky with big banks and their solutions. In an increasingly cashless society, small business owners were losing customers because they couldn't afford to take credit card payments. Accepting cards was prohibitively expensive, full of hidden fees and hardware costs, and that means just basic equipment. The credit card machine alone could cost over $900, and with continuous fees on top of that, these business owners were getting left behind. Square was started to fix this problem directly. So let's have a look at the company's first product, the card reader. An ingenious little device that plugged into an iPhone or any other smartphone and allowed sellers to accept card payments. The goal was to build the simplest thing possible for as many people as possible. And revolutionizing commerce by keeping things simple and fair is Square's whole goal. Like free card readers for the sellers, meaning no $900 card machines, Square would just give them the reader. And instead of tricky payment structures for card transactions, Square would just charge a set price. This means no hidden fees. And allowing small businesses to sign up free and leave when they want, no long, expensive contracts. Square leveled the playing field for smaller businesses, but that was only the beginning. Let's hear from CEO 𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗢𝗖𝗓𝗢𝗡 on Square's expansion.
We can't be a company that says, hey, we only serve small businesses, because that means they would grow out of us and we'd have to point them somewhere else. We want to make sure that they see us all the way along the path. And as they go from coffee cart to the size of a Starbucks, we can handle both extremes.
Hardware and software. So Square has evolved its ecosystem to allow it to grow with the sellers. And as the seller expands their business, they'll need new features. Square facilitates this through hardware and software innovations. In hardware, they've added things like the Square Stand, which can turn an iPad or any other tablet into a point-of-sale device. The Square Register, which is a fully integrated payment system that's software and hardware together, all in one. And recently, the Square Terminal. This is a fancy credit card machine that also manages inventory, like keeping track of stock, available products, that kind of thing. So a seller's whole business can function within the Square ecosystem. Their software can take care of everything from payments, invoices, and sales reports to payroll, team management, and even tax filings. Having all of these features in one system reduces costs for the sellers, who would often need to hire outside help like bookkeepers and accountants. Now, another part of the Square ecosystem is financial services. What has been the problem for businesses when it comes to financing? Well, small business owners are often unable to get loans from banks. Now, this can happen for a variety of reasons. Maybe they don't have a great credit score, or the banks just don't believe in the business's future. But Square Financial Services was created to help business owners who were rejected by the regular banking system. We should clarify that Block doesn't consider itself as direct competition to traditional banks, but you'll certainly see there's a lot of overlap here. So we'll focus on the three main elements of their financial services. Square Savings. This allows sellers to save a percentage of their sales as a backup for future use. It continues to save in the background like a rainy day fund. Square Checking, which allows sellers to gain instant access to the money generated from card sales. With a regular bank, getting access to these funds could take days, or more likely weeks. Square Loans. Now, this one is a big deal because as of 2021, Square's financial services has its own bank charter, and they can provide loans to business owners who are in the Square ecosystem to help them expand their businesses, and this is mutually beneficial because when the seller grows, Square grows, and as such, Block grows. One of the main advantages Square has over traditional banks is the unique way their loans are calculated. The terms of the loans are based on the account history of the seller. Square can see if the sales of the business are going up or down, as that data is collected through Square's software. Here's how it works. The seller uses the software for their business, and Square is then able to calculate fair terms based on that information, so the loans are customized to that business. The method of repayment is unique too, as there's no defined interest rate, just a flat fee, with repayments based on how well the business is doing, not on deadlines. So if the business has a good day in sales, it'll automatically repay a higher percentage than on a slow day. More card sales, more repayment. The goal of Square's financial services is to provide support to the business owners, startups, restaurants, and retailers who would normally fall through the cracks, and to help them succeed. In their own words, small businesses deserve more credit. So what are our thoughts? Well, as we can see, between the financial services, hardware, and software applications, the Square ecosystem is designed to help sellers start, run, and grow their business, and as easily as possible. So it's all aspects of the sell side combined into one place. Okay, let's dive in and take a look at the growth of the Square ecosystem. This segment's products are mostly monetized through a combination of transaction, subscription, and service fees. And Square's revenue for the full year of 2021 was up a very strong 47%, while the amount of dollars transacted over the platform was also up 47%. This has been helped along by the increase of in-person activity as the global health crisis winds down, but online sales channels and contactless commerce have been strong too. Importantly, sellers do appear to be staying with Square as their businesses grow, and this is beneficial because the larger a seller's business becomes, the more money they tend to generate, with an increasing number of sellers reaching above a $500,000 annual revenue figure. Square is also expanding internationally, and this is part of their global strategy for 2022, evidenced by an ever-growing presence in Europe, most recently arriving in Spain, joining places like Ireland and the UK. Revenue for Square's financial services segment has also been growing rapidly via services like Square Loans, which has now facilitated over 1.6 million loans and advances to help business owners expand. So, looking forward, we're going to place an 18% average growth rate to cover the years from 2021 out to 2025. It should be said that Block's management sees Square's market potential reaching many tens of billions, but we're going to stay conservative of their figures. So by 2025, and with our growth rate, this would see Square's revenue nearly double 2021's figure. We'll revisit this finance later and add it to our big picture view of Block in 2025. Also, you can check out our regularly updated financial videos to keep up with how the company is performing. So the legacy banking system is not just turned upside down for the business accounts, but also for individual personal banking. Now, this one is a game changer. Let's talk about the Cash App revolution. So, what's wrong with legacy banks when it comes to individuals? Well, a better question might be, what's right with them? Huge fees, long waiting times for processing payments, card costs, they're only open at certain hours so you physically have to travel to them, and they have exclusionary policies based on credit scores. Not a great CV. So Block's Cash App is taking the place of the traditional bank in this regard. It's putting the individual in charge of their own finances. It's literally an app on your phone, and it's like having a bank in your pocket, but it's available at all times with a better and more personalized user experience. From here, the users can send, receive, spend, and even invest their money. With Cash App, Block gave their customers their own digital wallet and gave them full control of their own personal bank. And by full control, we mean that the users are in charge of authorizing all transactions and with the push of a button. While commonplace now, Block led the way on this, because oftentimes a bank would freeze a card just because you used it outside your hometown, and without letting you know sometimes too. This could put you in the embarrassing situation where your card gets declined. Another example of traditional banks making your financial decisions for you. So, in keeping with Block's ideals, Cash App is available for any individual. And for those who were rejected by the legacy banking system, it's become a substitute bank. We'll hear from analyst Mark Palmer on this point. He had initially taken a negative view of Block, but then changed his tune.
The Cash App is a game changer. There are 85 million unbanked and underbanked consumers in the United States, and Cash App is helping to address their needs.
85 million people is a large potential extra market, and the features available with Cash App go much further than a regular bank. So let's have a look at the various parts of the Cash App ecosystem. Peer-to-peer. This means one Cash App user can send or receive funds from another without involving a third party, like a bank. Cash App also enabled instant transfers between people, so you could send someone money without the usual 2 or 3 day delay. And while peer-to-peer wasn't a new innovation, Square charged no fees for these transactions, unlike regular banks. They were still focusing on the long term rather than some short-term gain. Growing the network was, and still is, the goal. Direct deposits and card. Cash App has evolved to allow people to receive their paychecks via direct deposits, and they also have the option of a free customizable debit card, and this is connected to their Cash App balance. Boost. This is a rewards program for Cash App users. Boost entitles them to personalized discounts based on how and where they usually spend their money, so they're not just some random offers, it's customized to each user individually. Bitcoin and stocks. Well, keeping up with the times we're living in, Block dove into cryptocurrency in a big way and gave their users an option to buy, sell, and even gift Bitcoin straight from their Cash App balance. Their Bitcoin segment is called Spiral, and Block's Boost program even has rewards available in Bitcoin, meaning you can buy something and get cash back in Bitcoin. Cash App has even made it easy to invest in the stock market, with users able to buy and sell stocks directly from their phone. Tax. Yeah, Block has even added the ability for individuals to pay their taxes from their smartphone. I'm pretty sure my bank can't do that. So let's sum it up. In many areas, traditional banks have had to copy Block to stay relevant for individual users. Consider just some of the differences between Cash App and legacy banking. 24/7 availability from your pocket instead of Monday to Friday working hours, and you can forget the weekends. Instant peer-to-peer transfers and no fee versus slow peer-to-peer transfers and with fees. Real-time control over your payments instead of constantly waiting for the bank to process and decide on your payments. No card or maintenance costs versus, well, card and maintenance costs, so no surprises there. Personalized discounts versus usually no discounts, let alone personal ones. You can buy or sell Bitcoin versus Bitcoin. Is that on the West Coast? I think I've been there. Easy investing using your phone versus, well, you're gonna need an expensive brokerage for that. So what are our thoughts here? Well, what legacy banks seem to have misunderstood is that it's not only about the feature anymore, it's also about the buzz. Block and Cash App are buzzing. Cash App has become so popular that it's a verb in common usage. People say, "I'll Cash App you the money." And Gen Z, millennials, young people in general are using these services because Block is giving them what they want and need: simplicity and instant gratification. So, as we can see, Block's Cash App has already revolutionized personal finance, but it continues to grow and evolve because they're in touch with those wants and needs of current and upcoming generations, unlike traditional banks. That's never really been their strong point. Let's take a look at the growth of the Cash App ecosystem, and with fair warning, it's impressive. Cash App is growing rapidly, going from 3 million monthly active users in 2016 to over 40 million in 2021. So it's no surprise that it's the most downloaded finance app in the US. And Cash App's cost to gain each new customer is only $10, compared with a regular bank which costs an average of $200 to gain a customer. Cash App's advantage here is in brand awareness. People want to be part of it. And regular banks often incur a lot of extra costs. For example, by having a physical presence on main streets that then needs staffing and advertising. In turn, these costs are passed on to the customer through fees, administration expenses, and any other charge you probably didn't realize that you had to pay for. But it also should be said that at the moment, banks still generate more revenue per customer, so Cash App has a way to go here. Now, looking at revenue growth for this segment can be a little complicated because of the way Bitcoin trading revenue is reported. It can skew the numbers pretty wildly and not give the most accurate look at how the Cash App business itself is really doing. So we'll be using revenue excluding Bitcoin going forward. But that still has Cash App's revenue increasing 65% in 2021. And for numerous reasons. Revenue per user has been rising as Cash App has been expanding the range of services, while there's also been an increase in cash card usage and a higher volume of instant deposits. Interestingly, Block has also observed a rise in recurring paycheck deposits to Cash App, so it would appear more and more customers are using the platform for their primary banking needs. Now, while revenue was more than impressive for 2021, if we look at the last 2 years, the segment has grown at an average rate of 98% a year, highly impressive levels. So looking out to 2025, we're gonna apply a growth rate of 41%. While that may seem low compared to how the segment has been performing, it's still a huge level of growth. And from our starting point in 2021, this would see Cash App's 2025 excluded Bitcoin revenue nearly 4 times higher. Now, we know that sounds like a lot, but given Cash App's meteoric rise, it's not unthinkable growth. We'll revisit this at the end of the video in our financial wrap-up. And remember, we also have more videos covering more game-changing companies, so we recommend you check them out too. Let's keep in mind younger generations here and explore the buy now, pay later revolution as Block acquires Afterpay. Okay, so what could be the problem this time? We've been having a great time using our credit cards, right? Maybe, but a credited society is an indebted society. And there's been a distinct change in how younger people approach debt since the Great Recession in 2008. They want to use their own money instead of owing someone else money. So they use debit cards more than credit cards. Remember, credit is just a nice term for future debt. The reasoning is, why owe extra money just for the sake of a single purchase? Well, Block understood this shift was occurring and acquired Afterpay, one of the leading companies in the growing space of buy now, pay later. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It allows customers to purchase a product through 4 regular installments instead of an upfront payment. Consider someone who wants to make a $200 purchase with Lululemon, but they don't have all of the money there and then. Well, they can pay $50 now. Afterpay then steps in and covers the rest of the cost up front. The buyer then pays back Afterpay through installments of $50 over several weeks. It's like a loan service, but the repayments are interest-free, so the customer gets to pay the retail price over time, while the seller gets paid immediately. And assuming the repayments are on time, there'll be no extra charge for the buyer. That's very unlike credit cards. Afterpay assumes the risk by paying the seller up front, and then the user must fully settle the purchase with Afterpay before they can use the service again, so it's one debt at a time. Now, this is a safety mechanism, and it's for both Afterpay and the users. So Afterpay doesn't lose money, and the user doesn't overspend and get themselves into even more debt. It's really not too cynical to say that credit card providers may want their users to spend themselves into debt, so the adoption of a healthier spending system is a big step forward. Having buy now pay later services allows for huge benefits for all sorts of companies, as it opens them up to new customer bases. These customers may not have been able to afford their products before. And this inclusion of all types of buyer means that all types of seller will want to be part of that market, from small to large. So let's take a look at Afterpay's growth to see if Block's investment has strong potential. Block acquired Afterpay in 2021, with the acquisition being completed in early 2022. So Block will now be able to incorporate a further 19 million users and more than 120,000 sellers into the Cash App and Square ecosystems respectively. A recent survey found that customers using Afterpay spent 40% more per purchase and were over 50% more frequent in making purchases than customers not using Afterpay. According to Block, Afterpay's full-year revenue for 2021 was up 71%. But because they didn't provide any numbers, we'll be using Afterpay's own report for their fiscal year 2021 going forward. In the buy now pay later space, Afterpay is one of the leaders, but it's not all sunshine and ice cream. They will have massive competition in the US from PayPal, who've introduced their own buy now pay later service, and also Affirm. And that's not to forget the international markets, where they have strong competition from Klarna. Another area to stay aware of here is regarding regulation of the buy now pay later sector in certain jurisdictions. Still though, Block's business framework is highly complementary to Afterpay's and could lead to much further growth. Now, we're going to look at Afterpay's figures as a standalone business using their own 2021 annual report. And if we apply an average growth rate of 35% out to 2025, we see Afterpay's revenue rising by over 3 times their fiscal 2021 figure. Again, we'll add this to our financial wrap-up. And remember, our company-specific financial videos are updated regularly, so you can keep on top of Block's performance. Now, let's wrap up Block. So, as we've seen, the company is taking more market share from traditional banks every day, and they've revolutionized finance by allowing everyone to participate. But while Block is a trendsetter, competition is fierce. PayPal's Venmo in the US and Revolut in Europe both compete with Cash App. And legacy banks still hold trillions in assets while providing personal mortgages and making multi-billion-dollar loans to companies, so Block is not the entire face of modern banking just yet. The company will also have to invest in itself wisely. Acquisitions like music streaming platform Tidal will definitely have to prove their worth. Another potential threat could come from Apple's investment into point-of-sale software to allow business owners to use just their iPhone to complete sales, without a need for any other hardware. While this sounds ominous given the size of Apple, Block as a company has been surprisingly resilient to competitive threats. Amazon famously gave up on their attempt to compete with Block, and when they shut down that part of their business, sent those customers a Square card reader instead. In terms of future plans, we should note that Block has a lot of data, and that may be valuable. Companies are often willing to pay a lot to get their products suggested to the right customers. While some other future-focused segments include Spiral and the cryptically titled TBD 545-66975. These respectively focus on Bitcoin and its underlying technology. Now, this is probably as good a time as any to note that the name Block is a direct reference to blockchain, and that is Bitcoin's underlying technology. CEO Jack Dorsey is a big fan, so the connection here seems quite apparent. In future, we also shouldn't be too surprised to see Block expanding to mortgages and larger business loans, but at this moment, that's just speculation. So Block is definitely a disruptive company, and considering its level of innovation and customer participation, it's worth watching closely. It likely will be involved in shaping the financial world going forward. We're going to look at the company's finances next, but it's important to realize that any future-looking statements are just estimates. This is not investment advice. The content of this video is for educational purposes only, and it's based on our own research, but of course, we could be wrong. When it comes to investing, it's very important to do your own research. Remember, an investment decision can be a big decision, and ultimately, it's your decision. Company stock prices can vary wildly, and it's common for the market or individual companies to have dips called corrections, or even severe drops, for example in times of recession. So when you look at the long-term stock performance of a well-established company, it can sometimes look like the stock just goes up. But when you zoom in closely to a shorter time frame, let's say a year, you'll see the line become jagged. It can even look like a mountain range in volatile years, but it certainly won't be straight up. So there will be dips, and in some years massive drops, possibly 40, 50% or even more. But for a fundamentally strong company, these dips are likely temporary, and when we zoom out to the long term, we can see they regain their position and continue incrementally up over time. If a business has a strong competitive advantage and is built to be anti-fragile, then this should be positively reflected in the stock price over the long term. And that is very important, the long term. Now, let's get nerdy with some very large numbers. We're going to compare revenue from 2021 to potential estimates for 2025. Keeping in mind that revenue growth does not mean stock price growth, but it's important to look at how a business has been performing and how it could progress. So, for 2021, the Square segment's revenue was $5.2 billion. And if we apply an 18% growth rate, we get to just under $10.1 billion in 2025. That's our near 2x from earlier. For Cash App, we'll be using the excluded Bitcoin revenue figure of $2.3 billion in 2021. Now, Cash App is likely to continue growing significantly, with additional revenue channels opening through new demographics like families and teenagers, whilst also promoting more commerce through the app. So we're applying the 41% growth rate we mentioned earlier, meaning this segment could reach roughly $9.1 billion in 2025. That would be a very impressive near 4x increase. Now, if we included Bitcoin figures, revenue could be a far higher number, but it may not be reflective of underlying business growth. Afterpay. So for Afterpay's fiscal year 2021, revenue was $693 million. Now we're going to apply an average growth rate of 35% to cover our 4-year time span, and that gets to roughly $2.3 billion in 2025. That would be more than a 3x for this segment. But we should note we can't count Afterpay's 2021 revenue to Block's total, because the acquisition hadn't been completed at that point. As of Block's most recent annual report, Afterpay's numbers have not yet been included. So in total for 2021, and excluding Bitcoin, we have $7.5 billion in revenue for Block. There was, however, an inclusion of what was called corporate and other in their 2021 annual report, which in their own words represents results related to products and services that are not assigned to a specific reportable segment. So that's fancy talk that just means areas outside of the Square and Cash App ecosystems. And this came in at well over $100 million, so we'll add it here but not make a future projection for it. This brings our 2021 total to $7.6 billion. So, adding the potential totals for 2025, we get to around $21.5 billion, and that would be nearly 3 times the revenue Block generated in 2021, excluding Bitcoin. Now again, this is potential revenue growth, it's not a stock price assumption. It's covering a 4-year time span, and of course, a lot has to go right to achieve such large increases in revenue. Don't forget, it's still early days for things like Spiral, and Tidal, and TBD, the thing with the numbers. Block still has big plans for each segment of its business, and we'll keep an eye on how they affect performance going forward. One thing seems certain though, they have no intention of slowing down progress. So we'll leave you with a question. What could an investment in Block now be worth in 2025? If you want to see more short documentaries like this, go to our YouTube channel or LinkedIn page. Make sure to subscribe or follow, and there, you'll be able to enjoy more of our videos.